The Formula One grid didn't freeze when George Russell spoke. There was no dramatic press conference walkout, no headline screaming panic. But make no mistake, something shifted. Quietly, permanently. Because when Russell talked about 2026, he didn't sound like a driver hoping for a chance. He sounded like a driver who believes the door is already open. And the most uncomfortable part? He said it while talking about Max Verstappen, not as an untouchable force, not as an inevitable champion, but as a rival he expects to fight head-on. That's the moment most people missed. And that's why this matters more than anyone wants to admit. For years, Formula One has operated on an unspoken assumption: Max Verstappen is the benchmark until proven otherwise. Even when rivals close the gap, the language stays careful, respectful, defensive. But Russell didn't hedge. He didn't deflect. He didn't say we'll see. He said he feels ready. Ready to fight for a world championship. Ready to take on Max. Ready for 2026. Read that again. That's not confidence, that's intent. And before anyone dismisses this as preseason bravado, here's the uncomfortable truth. Drivers don't talk like this unless something behind the scenes has changed. Because in modern Formula One, statements aren't just opinions, they're signals. The context matters. 2026 isn't just another season, it's a hard reset. New power units, new electrical deployment rules, new aerodynamic philosophy, new balance between energy harvesting and performance. Every advantage Max has built under the current era doesn't automatically carry over. And Russell knows it, Mercedes knows it, Red Bull definitely knows it, even if they won't say it out loud. Here's what makes Russell's words dangerous. He didn't claim Mercedes were fastest. He didn't say Red Bull was struggling. He didn't attack Max directly. Instead, he reframed the future. He spoke about readiness, about process, about positioning, about believing they're in the fight. That's not noise, that's structure. And this is where the real story begins. Because if you strip away lap times, preseason runs, and polite paddock language, 2026 is shaping up to be the most politically volatile season Formula One has seen in over a decade. Red Bull are entering the unknown with a fully independent power unit project for the first time in modern F1 history. Mercedes are returning to an environment where power unit excellence matters again, their historic strength. Ferrari are rebuilding, Audi is arriving, and the entire competitive order is up for renegotiation. So when Russell says he's ready to fight Max, he's not predicting a result. He's declaring that Mercedes believe they've aligned the pieces early. And alignment wins regulation resets more often than raw speed. That's insane when you think about it. Because Max Verstappen's dominance hasn't just been about talent. It's been about operating inside a system designed around clarity. Red Bull, under the current rules, found the working window first. They understood how to exploit it. They refined it relentlessly. And Max executed it perfectly. But resets don't reward continuity alone. They reward interpretation. And this is where the pressure quietly shifts. Mercedes spent the last regulation cycle chasing, learning painful lessons, experimenting publicly, being forced to rethink assumptions they'd relied on for years. And that matters. Because teams that suffer during one era often emerge sharper in the next, not because they're faster, but because they're humbler. Ask yourself this honestly. When was the last time Mercedes underestimated a power unit regulation change? Exactly. Russell's confidence isn't built on fantasy, it's built on history. Mercedes dominated the hybrid era not because they had better drivers, but because they understood how systems interact before anyone else did. Energy recovery, thermal efficiency, deployment strategy, reliability under sustained load. These aren't buzzwords, they're championships. And 2026 puts all of them back at the center of performance. Here's the part nobody wants to talk about yet. Max Verstappen has never entered a regulation reset without Adrian Newey designing around the same competitive assumptions. Newey is brilliant, but even brilliance has limits when the rulebook changes this much. Red Bull aren't just designing a new car, they're building a new ecosystem, a new power unit philosophy, a new operational rhythm. That's not weakness, but it is risk. And Russell knows it. That's why his tone matters more than his words. He wasn't aggressive, he wasn't defensive, he was measured, almost calm, the kind of calm that comes from knowing something others don't. The kind that doesn't need to shout. Be honest, did that make you uncomfortable? Because it should. Midway through the season, when drivers speak this openly, it usually means the internal simulations are matching reality. It means correlation is strong. It means the unknowns are shrinking. And Russell didn't speak like a man guessing. He spoke like a man briefing the future. Now here's where the story gets even more interesting. Russell didn't dismiss Max. In fact, he acknowledged Red Bull's strength. That's the tell. In Formula One, real confidence doesn't come from denial. It comes from acceptance. He knows Verstappen will be there. He expects it. And he still believes Mercedes can win. That's the bomb. Because if Russell truly believed Red Bull would dominate 2026, he wouldn't frame the conversation this way. He'd downplay expectations. He'd talk about development years. He'd manage pressure. Instead, he leaned into the fight, and Mercedes didn't shut him down. Let that sink in. Teams control narratives tightly, especially heading into new eras. If Russell was out of line, the messaging would have been softened, redirected. It wasn't. That tells you the internal alignment is real. And before someone says drivers say things all the time, remember this. Russell has been burned by optimism before. He lived through Mercedes' recent struggles. He knows what false confidence feels like. That experience changes how you speak. It makes you cautious, unless the data is backing you up. This is where smart fans subscribe, because this isn't about hype. It's about reading signals. Now zoom out for a second. Max Verstappen remains the best driver on the grid. That hasn't changed. But Formula One history is littered with eras where the best driver didn't win the title because the ecosystem shifted faster than expected. Schumacher lost, Vettel lost, Hamilton lost. Talent doesn't disappear. Circumstances change. And 2026 is a circumstance changer. The question isn't whether Max can adapt. He absolutely can. The question is whether Red Bull's advantage survives the transition intact. And that's where Russell's comments become quietly destabilizing. Because he's not challenging Max's ability, he's challenging the inevitability. And inevitability is the most dangerous thing to lose in Formula One. Here's something else most people missed. Russell framed 2026 as an opportunity, not a gamble. That language matters. Opportunity implies preparedness. Gamble implies uncertainty. Drivers feel that difference long before fans do. And if Mercedes truly believe they're positioned correctly, then the psychological landscape of the grid is already shifting. Now let's talk about pressure. Max Verstappen thrives under pressure, but Red Bull as an organization is entering unfamiliar territory. They are no longer the disruptors. They're the incumbents. They're the ones being hunted. And for the first time in years, they're doing it with a major technical unknown hanging over them. Meanwhile, Mercedes are returning to a familiar role: architects, system builders, long-term planners. That inversion matters more than lap times ever will. So here's the uncomfortable question. Is Russell early, or is he right? Because if Mercedes' interpretation of 2026 is even close to optimal, then the championship fight won't wait until mid-season. It will ignite immediately. And Max Verstappen will not be cruising into another era unchallenged. And here's where the tension really spikes. Because if Russell is right, then the entire narrative around Red Bull's invincibility cracks before the season even begins. Sponsors rethink leverage. Drivers reassess futures. Development priorities shift. Political alliances change. This isn't just about one quote. It's about the first public fracture in certainty. And that's why this statement landed harder than people realize. If you're enjoying this level of analysis, you're not a casual fan, and you already know what to do. Now let me ask you something, and be honest. If Mercedes and Red Bull start 2026 on equal footing, who do you back? The driver who's dominated the previous era, or the team that mastered the last reset? Because that's the real fight hiding underneath Russell's words. This isn't arrogance, it's positioning. And the most dangerous thing in Formula One isn't a fast car. It's a rival who believes, with reason, that the future favours them. The rest of the grid heard Russell, Red Bull heard Russell, and Max Verstappen definitely heard Russell. The only question now is who's actually ahead, and who's about to find out the hard way. And if you want to understand how this connects to Red Bull's latest development signals, and why Max's own comments might be more revealing than they seem, the next video on your screen completes the picture.